The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Sunny Wednesday here in Southern California. The NHL Finals start tonight, and I think this should be billed somebody has to win, because the Bruins have not won a Stanley Cup since 1972. The Vancouver Canucks have never won a Stanley Cup. And on the line right now in the Subway Fresh Tech Hotline, the man who predicted these two teams would meet, from Yahoo Sports, Greg Wyshynski. What's happening?
Clearly, I'm the only one who ever did predict that. I think I'm the only person who predicted Boston and Vancouver in the final. And
what were the odds?
Lauded for it, absolutely.
What were the odds? Like 5-1, maybe?
The odds were probably around 5-1. I mean, Vancouver was obviously the favorite out of the West, and then it was just a matter of whether or not you thought Philly was going to be able to make it back, or if you thought that the Capitals are going to have their day. But I liked what Boston was made of, and I feel vindicated. And plus, I don't know about you, Bill, but I'm always a fan of the journey for these teams. I always look at playoff runs like, what's the DVD going to look like? And vanquishing the arch rivals from Montreal in the first round, and then exacting revenge on the Flyers for that 7-game upset last year, to me is like the stuff of the championship DVD.
Yeah, and then winning, I think, 3 out of 4 games that went into overtime against Montreal in a row.
Oh, for sure. And then, of course, winning a Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Final. So all of that stuff is the storybook, fable-y thing that you look for from a team. And here are the Bruins in the final.
Does it feel like these are the two best teams? Because sometimes in hockey, somebody will sneak in, a goalie will get hot for a couple rounds, and you always get that feeling like, all right, well, this is a little March Madness-y. This time it actually feels like these are the two best teams.
I think so. I think on paper maybe the Capitals were the best team in the East, but they've been the best team in the East on paper for any number of the last couple of years. But it's all about the playoffs, right? And I think you look at the way Boston played in the playoffs, you look at the way they're constructed, you look at what they have in goal, and I think that these are the two best playoff teams that are playing for the Stanley Cup, no doubt. And in Vancouver's case, also the best regular season team, because they came extraordinarily close to leading the league in goals scored, in the fewest goals given up, in power play, and in the penalty kill, which is just a remarkable achievement. I think they hit 3 of the 4.
Is it fair to say Vancouver has the best 3 players in the series?
That's a tougher call, man. I think you have to give some respect to Chara, even though he hasn't had the best playoff, as being maybe as good as anything that Vancouver's going to throw out there. And then Tim Thomas, I think, even though our site called it an even matchup with Luongo, might be the better of the two goaltenders when he's on. But there's no question that the Sedins, when they click, when they're able to float around the zone and do their thing, and Ryan Kesler, who's probably the odds-on favorite right now to win playoff MVP, because no one else in the playoffs can claim to have won a round on his own like he did, where he had 11 points on the 14 goals they had against Nashville. That's a ridiculous achievement. Right. So there's no question that those 3 Caps are playing as good as anybody right now.
Where would you rank Kesler, like in the top 6 in the NHL right now?
That's a great question, because this is his coming out party. I mean, what happened in the regular season is that he had been their defensive ace for a number of years, always in contention for the Selke Trophy for top defensive forward. Then they go out and get Manny Malhotra as a free agent, as sort of their ace defensive center. And that freed up Kesler to kind of do some different things, to be a different player than he's been in the past, and really kind of let his game blossom. And what that led to was just a remarkable offensive season. I mean, a breakout year of 41 goals, 73 points. And we're still kind of just learning, I think, how good this guy is. I don't know if you can necessarily rank him among the Sids and the Ovechkins and all those other guys, because it's been 1 year of really seeing Ryan Kesler be a well-rounded player. But there's no question that in the playoffs he's shown flashes of just absolute brilliance. There are times when you look at the way this guy plays and you think of guys like Henrik Zetterberg and players like that who just can dominate on both ends of the rink.
You don't think last year was his coming out party at the Olympics?
Oh, well, now you're getting into a classic hockey fan debate. Is the international stuff, how does that play into the NHL? I mean, I'm an NHL snob.
Yeah.
I think what you do in the league is what you do in the league, and what you do internationally is what you do internationally. So, I mean, there's no question that he landed on everybody's radar in the same way that I think David Backes did, and the same way that Ryan Miller did.
Yep.
For a lot of people who maybe are coming at the sport from a casual perspective. But from an NHL perspective, statistically and impact-wise, I really think that the star qualities of Kessler really came out this year.
Yeah, he's the best player in this series. But you could, I mean, the last couple rounds, you could have said the other team had the best player against the Bruins. They've definitely done the numbers have outweighed like the talent, and like Tampa had a couple really scary guys. And fortunately, one of them, well, I don't want to say fortunately because it was kind of terrible, but Stamkos getting hit in the face with a puck, I think really helped the Bruins in that game because he was terrifying. LeCavier was terrifying. St. Louis was terrifying. And yet the Bruins kind of got through it, which makes me wonder, like maybe they just have it this year.
There is that sense. There is a sense that that they've got this survival instinct, but I think the problem that I have with that idea is that they're usually surviving their own problems. Like they're the classic one step forward, one step back kind of team, where there are times when you watch them during the playoffs and you see these series and you say to yourself, this should be like a 5-game series, and all of a sudden it goes 7, or it goes deeper than it should. And it strikes you that this team just seems to find new and inventive ways to undermine its own success, whether it's the single worst power play that's probably ever appeared in a Stanley Cup final, whether it's untimely penalties, guys going absolutely ice cold, Timmy Thomas giving up 4 goals, and then he has to come back and shut out the team in the following game. There just seems to be this notion of, for every good thing that happens, they got to go and make life difficult for themselves. And I'm not necessarily convinced that's the stuff of championship teams.
The power play is obviously the big weak link. The power play has been so bad that when they have a good power play, even if they don't score, it's like a moral victory. Yeah. It's like, we controlled the puck. They only had 2 icings.
It's remedial. You expect the fans to come out on the ice and hand out blue ribbons at some point for the effort. It was hard for me to rank Game 7 of the Tampa series because obviously it's the team I'm rooting for, and it was pins and needles that whole game. How great was that game? You had no penalties. It was 1-0. The one goal that was scored was really like the perfect kind of hockey goal. Like it just couldn't have been executed any better. It was almost like watching one of those old Stiga games that we played in the 80s, with the it was just perfect, and the whole game was, I just felt like I've never seen a hockey game played better than that. Do you agree, or am I overrating it because the Bruins were involved? You're overrating it because the Bruins were in it, but that's okay. I think you're allowed to do that. I remember watching that game and thinking to myself that while I appreciated the drama and I appreciated the action, and I certainly appreciated the goaltending on both sides of the ice as kind of a goalie nerd, it just didn't seem to kind of elevate to that level of classic game. Like, it was tense, and you knew that the next goal would probably win the game. But it just didn't, there was something missing from it. And it might have been the fact that when you think about the narrative of the series, to have a game in which there isn't a penalty called almost takes away a major plot line from the series. I mean, Game 6 was all about the Tampa Bay Lightning locating their cojones on the power play and winning that game on special teams, and all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, is there any way Boston can overcome all of these great offensive players with the man advantage? And then you don't get to see that confrontation in Game 7, and I think maybe I felt a little cheated by it. I don't think Boston fans feel cheated by it. I think they feel extraordinarily fortunate that there was not a power play in that game. But from a hockey fan perspective, you kind of wanted to see that showdown with a trip to the Cup final on the line, and it never came to fruition.
That's interesting, because I was looking at it the other way. I thought it was just so cleanly played. And, with games like that, I guess it's more dramatic if somebody screws up, or, you get the stupid boarding penalty or the dumb trip or whatever, and then power play, they breaks up the game. You got these 2 minutes that feel more exciting. But I thought the fact that there was no penalty whatsoever made it like a really unique game. Like, I'll always remember watching that game. It just was like, there was 5-minute 5-minute stretches where there were no whistles, nothing. It was just going. Guys couldn't get off the ice. I don't think I've ever seen a game like that.
And the good news is that it was, like you said, a really cleanly played game. You can go back over that tape and not find but maybe 5 times when you're like, well, that could have been a penalty. And that's remarkable for an NHL game, and especially with one with that much on the line. The real point of joy for me, though, in that scenario, though, is the fact that we didn't get some cheapie to all of a sudden break that streak. Like, there was no too many men on the ice. Nobody put the puck over the glass on a delay of game. That was the thing I was worried about, is like, these two teams have clearly played a clean game. The referees are able to put their whistles away, let them play. The last thing I wanted to see was a power play for either team because of some dumb mental mistake or some, BS rule like the delay of game penalty. I mean, that would have been a real heartbreaker.
And the crowd was great. It was a Friday night crowd, 8 o'clock, Memorial Day weekend. Everybody was, was around the Causeway Street bars and the Canal Street bars by like 4 o'clock. They were chanting and doing that. They did everything you'd want a hockey crowd to do. Now you have Vancouver in here. Vancouver's what, a top 4 hockey crowd? Where would you rank in the hockey crowd pantheon?
In the hockey crowd pantheon, I would rank them top 4, maybe even top 3.
Who's won?
Top of the decibel level. A very strange thing has happened out there, and I've been asking some of my Vancouver friends when this happened, and they can't seem to pinpoint it either. First off, unlike some other Canadian crowds, cough, Toronto cough, they all wear jerseys.
Yeah.
They all wear jerseys. They all have, and it's not just like wearing the current jersey either. They wear the old style, orange and black V1, the real hideous looking one. They wear, it helps that Vancouver's had at least 25 different jerseys probably in their team history, but they all come to the game in jerseys. But then on top of that, there's been this very strange sort of Western Canadian Mardi Gras vibe that's pervaded that arena, to where now you have the green men doing their thing against the penalty box glass. People show up with, bedazzled faces and beads and glasses, and everybody getting all, dolled up for this game in different ways. And it's a kind of listen, we both know Vancouver's a party town, but the party atmosphere has definitely infected that arena in a way that I'm still trying to figure out exactly when the sea change occurred, but it definitely did.
And they're traveling too, and unfortunately fortunately for Bruins fans, unfortunately for Canucks fans, it's pretty far away, Boston. I don't know if they're going to be able to travel that well, but I was shocked by how they traveled to San Jose. Did you expect that?
And I talked to the people at StubHub, and they said that the percentage of tickets that were sold on that resale service to fans in British Columbia was off the charts. It was like 4 times the normal amount you'd expect for another locality that's involved in a championship series. So, yeah, they travel. And the other thing about it is that the availability of tickets is going to be an issue, too, in the sense that, Vancouver's on lockdown. Those guys aren't giving up the ducats unless they're getting overwhelmed by a price.
Yep.
So you might actually even have Vancouver fans that make the trip to Boston simply because they believe the price for the tickets and the availability of the tickets might be easier than to try to get them in Vancouver.
I had a friend of mine who's a Canucks fan who went to one of the San Jose games and mailed me a picture from like the concourse between periods, and it was all Vancouver fans. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But I love
that. I don't know about you, but I love when I go to my arena and there's an invasion, and that might be a product of me growing up in Jersey as a Devils fan, and having to deal with 70% of my arena being Ranger fans or Flyer fans, depending on who's in town that day. There's this sort of scrappy underdogness that comes with an invasion in your building, and I always kind of didn't like the fact that Ted Leonsis here in D.C. worked the system where if you're a fan from out of town, you can't buy a playoff ticket with the ease that someone inside D.C. or Virginia can.
Right.
He kind of made it tougher for there to be fan invasions in his building, and I think at the end of the day, that just makes it really antiseptic.
Yeah, I think about this Vancouver thing. Obviously, it would be awesome if they won the Cup. And I love stories. As being a pre-2004 Red Sox fan, I don't think there's anything better than a fan base that waited forever and ever and really truly suffered, and then you win. And I feel bad that the Bruins are the team playing them in a way, because especially you saw it in the first round against Chicago when they almost blew that 3-0 lead. You talked about the festive atmosphere in Vancouver and all that stuff, but man, you could not hear a crowd that had their sphincters were so freaking tight. They were so nervous, and And I just think it's tough to shed that baggage. If anything, that's one of Boston's best assets in the series.
Well, the vibe that you get, I think, is the vibe that a lot of us feel, which is that the Bruins are the foil here. You know, they're the means to the end for Vancouver. And it's not necessarily two teams of destiny butting heads, but it's a Vancouver team that's got some karma on its side, that's got the having never won a cup thing on its side, and they're facing a tough opponent in the finals, but one that almost feels like is playing a role towards Vancouver's eventual championship. I mean, that's at least the kind of, you know, sports narrative vibe that you get from this series. Whether or not it's true, I mean, that's the joy of hockey, is the fact that we're going to find out in the next couple games whether or not that's accurate. But that's kind of the sniff test on this series so far, I think, is Vancouver goes in as sort of the champion in waiting, and Boston is the last insurmountable obstacle.
Well, I'll tell you what the Bruins fans are holding on to, and this is, I think, a valid point. You look at the Bruins haven't won since 1972. If you go through, you look at all the chances that they had over the years, and every time they went against some sort of historical juggernaut, like 74, they lose the cup, it's against the Broad Street Bullies. So, when they had the run in 77, 78, 79, that was the Guy Lafleur Canadiens, who were just a dynasty. The last chance from that era, I think, was the first Islanders title, which maybe was either, I guess, 1980. Then you go through in 88, they finally make the cup. It's the Gretzky Oilers. Then in 90, which was really probably their best chance, but that was still the post-Gretzky Oilers, and they had made that trade, and they had gotten all those pieces. And
Messier still there.
And then the next year was really, I thought, the last really, really good Bruins team. It was the series that Neely got hurt, but that was the Lemieux-Yager Penguins. You know, and then you go through, and now it's like, this is the first time that they're not playing a team with the cup on the line that I feel like is going to be remembered 100 years from now. This Canucks team good, but it's not one of those teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not a sense of it being dynastic yet. You know, there's a sense that they've been building towards this through their own several years of playoff disappointments. But yeah, it doesn't stack up to the Islanders or the Oilers or the Mario Penguins or anything like that. I think you're completely right, especially because it's going to be tough to keep this team together with the cap and with a bunch of free agents next year. So, yeah, it may not be that case. But that said, I mean, even though they don't feel dynastic, they're still clearly the best team in hockey this year. I mean, they are going up against what could rightfully be called a juggernaut that's gotten better as the playoffs have gone on. I mean, they had to exercise the Blackhawks demon, the team that Luongo simply couldn't beat until Game 7. And then Nashville gave them a series, but that was mainly because the Sedins were taken out of the equation in that series. And then against San Jose, I think we saw the awesome power of this fully armed and operational battle station known as the Vancouver Canucks, because they rolled the Sharks pretty good in that series. And I think they're one of these teams that definitely has sort of found their stride as the playoffs have gone longer.
You know what scared me? I watched a lot of that Canucks-Sharks series. I thought the Sharks played pretty well. I don't feel like the Sharks were like, oh yeah, we sucked that series, we could have done better. It felt like they had stretches where they really kind of dominated, and the Canucks just always seem to have an answer.
Well, and that's why it's so hard to swallow the thing that everybody wants to shovel on the Sharks' grave, which is the choker label, which I think they got rid of arguably last year. And you're right. I mean, sometimes you just try to land the best punch you can, and the other guy is throwing haymakers, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I felt the same way, you know, especially in that elimination game when I thought that the Sharks really came to play and just gave them hell, and it in the end wasn't enough. I mean, it wasn't enough because the puck took this freakish gravity-defying bounce off the boards, off the glass, and then BX scored. But it was an awesome effort, like you said, all around, and it wasn't enough. And I think that goes to just speaks to how deep this Vancouver team is.
This is the fourth hockey playoffs that I've, 2008 was when I started to come back. And this was the first year that I actually watched regular season games.
Yeah, were you a casualty of the lockout?
I was probably, the Devil's Trap was the beginning of the end. The Kevin's, a lot of the stuff that the Bruins did. I think when they traded Bork, that was like the final straw for me. We had to trade him so he could win a cup and had a parade. It was so bleak, and it was so tough to root for a team that had bad ownership. And I also the product wasn't that good. I think you look at, we've talked about it for a variety of reasons. The product is back to where it was, and I think, you compare the hockey playoffs versus the basketball playoffs. I'm a basketball guy. But you can't argue with in hockey, the officiating so rarely decides what's going on. The guys settle their own business on the ice. The game's exciting. It looks great in HD. Like, I just think it's in a great place. And as a sports fan, I think I really feel like stuff's happening with hockey. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I feel better about this final than I did earlier in the playoffs as far as the matchup and as far as the interest in it. Now, granted, it's not exactly been the greatest run-up to the Cup final for the NHL in the sense that you had that relocation of Atlanta to Winnipeg.
Right.
News broke on the day of Game 1 that there was going to be some changes in management in the NHL where Colin Campbell, the disciplinarian, is going to maybe leave his gig, and Brendan Shanahan might take over. That was a big report today. So in 2 separate days, the news cycle has been gobbled up by news that's off the ice, and I'm sort of baffled at how the NHL doesn't control that message better. But I'm more confident now than I was at the beginning of the playoffs that there are casual hockey fans and sports fans that maybe aren't into hockey that are going to be into this series. I think Boston is an incredibly compelling team as an original 6 team, as a team whose local ratings in New England are probably going to push the needle for this series because the ratings from Canada don't count. And for whatever reason, even though they're never on American television all that often during the regular season, I think there is an interest level in this Vancouver team because of the Twins, because of Kessler, because of Luongo. There is a sense of recognition with these players that maybe hasn't been there when other Canadian teams have made the finals in the last decade. So I think this is going to be a pretty good final from an interest level and do okay in the ratings, much better than maybe I thought it would have in the beginning of the playoffs.
Yeah, this Bruins team has tapped into something back home that, in the 70s it was hockey first, and Bobby Orr obviously was the bird before bird. That's
to me, and I'm saying this as a kid who grew up in Jersey and has, sort of that distant relationship with Bostonian sports. Part of it's got to be the blue-collar aesthetic, right? I mean, arguably the best player on the team is Tim Thomas this season, and he is the guy that you can sit down with at the pub and trade war stories with. And there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for the approachability of that, and to have an old guy like Recchi on the team, and to have the team play the physical style that it plays, and have grunts like Sean Thornton that kind of connect with fans. This always seemed to me to be a very Bostonian team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's no unapproachable, inspiring xenophobia European on this team that everybody has to kind of rally around. It seems like a very North American sort of blue-collar team.
Yeah, Marchand and Horton, guys like, these are guys that feel like they could have played on the late 70s Bruins teams.
Right. Well, obviously there's one foreign guy, it's Chara, but I think people just see him, as Andre the Giant.
Yeah, true. He's probably, other than Thomas, probably the most popular guy on the team. Although Sagan became kind of a polarizing guy during the season because people did feel like he should be playing more. And then in the playoffs, he got buried, and there was the whole thing of he's not ready yet, and they're having trouble scoring. And there was this whole element of people like Sagan should be playing. So then when he actually did play because Bergeron got the concussion, it was like people were really vindicated. I told you he should have been playing. And, he's the guy that I think going forward could be the signature guy that they really haven't had since, they wanted it to be Joe Thornton. And it just never got there. So you really have to go back to Neely. But this is the guy I think that the kids will be wearing his jersey and, they need somebody like that. He's also
the most remarkable thing about Sagan, I thought, this year was back when he was sort of trying to find his way as a rookie in the regular season. He looked a lot like Affleck a little bit, I thought. He had this kind of like square-jawed Matinee Idol kind of look to him.
Yeah.
You look at him now in the playoffs, he looks like DiCaprio from The Departed. It's like close-cropped hair, scraggly facial hair, living in the gutters kind of look. And I can't recall another physical transformation for a player from looking one way and playing one way to looking another way and playing another way than Sagan this season. It's been fun to see, actually.
I had faith when it looked like Bergeron was going to be out for a couple of games. I really thought he was going to do well for 3 reasons. One, because he had the talent, because this was a guy who was a franchise guy who was drafted in June 2010, and now it had been 10 months and maybe he'd be ready. But My friend Sully, who works for the Celtics, told me a story that they'd gotten Sagan. He'd asked for courtside tickets for a game or tickets right near the floor or whatever. And they got him the tickets, and he showed up like an hour before the game. And it wasn't like he showed up because he'd had the time wrong or because he was a dork or all that. Like, he showed up because he wanted to kind of get a feel for it and see it, watch the guys warm up. Like, he was interested. You know, he was like studying it. And then the third thing was when you read the articles after he got left off from the playoff roster, I think a lot of 19-year-old kids would check out or be like, screw them, or, you know, obviously I'm not good enough, and by all accounts, he was like showing up early, trying to learn everything he could just in case he could be ready. So it seems like he might be special.
He is special. When I met him at the draft and also at the finals last year before the draft, there's a star quality to him. And in talking to him and talking to Taylor Hall, the guy who was drafted before him, there's a clear difference in personality between the two. And you know, I always felt like there was that aspect of this kid that the Bruins were also interested in the sense that he's going to be a real ambassador for them and a guy who's going to be great with the media. I mean, for God's sakes, I talked to him at the draft, and at that point it was pretty well established he was going to go number 2 overall. And and we were asking him, you know, what's your time been like in L.A.? You know, what are your expectations for the draft? You nervous? And almost every question he asked the kid, his answer was some variation of, all I want to do is meet LC from the hills while I'm out here. You got to respect that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I heard his girlfriend was unbelievable, apparently. So he's got that down pat. But that's a hockey thing. Hockey guys get the girls. That's why I'm going to have my son on skates soon. But you know, I think
for sure, yeah.
I think when you have guys who might end up being great, they got to show it early on. You know, like I look at somebody like LeBron had that 48-point game against the Pistons early in his career, and it was become kind of clear, all right, this guy's doing this early, something great's going to happen. And for Sagan, I do feel like, I can't remember if it was game 1 or game 2, but the game when the Tyler Sagan game, you know, is what people remember it as. But to break out on that level made me feel good about where his career's headed. You know what I mean?
I think so. And it was a great moment. And you're right. It's funny. You talk about the decisions that a coach makes in a series. You had half the city probably screaming that where was this injection of offense earlier when our power play couldn't put a goal on the board,
right?
Versus other people probably saying, you know what, that showed good patience and it paid off. The fact that you had Sagan after that game talking about having a chance to sit up in the rafters and watch these games and get a sense of the excitement level and the pace of the game and that kind of thing. So it was one of those real back and forth situations. If you hate Claude Julien, and having listened to about 25 seconds of Boston Sports Radio, I think that's probably the majority, Bill.
Right.
Then you probably say that he should have been in the series earlier. But for a lot of others, it's a case where you say, hey, the coach played his hand correctly in this one. He held him back until he was ready, and he came in and gave him a kick in the behind.
The interest has been crazy, and I think part of it has to do with there's a second radio station now in Boston that started a couple years ago, and they talk a lot of hockey. And in the old days, WEI was like the monopoly all sports station. None of the guys really talked hockey except for one guy. And this other station has been really, really playing it up and talking. Is Claude Julien good? Should Sagan be playing more? And it really feels like hockey's kind of back in Boston. But let's go to Vancouver for a second.
Sure.
Is all of Canada rooting for this?
No. Greatest misnomer of the finals, sir.
That's why I asked.
All of Canada is not rooting for this. All of Canada was rooting for the gold medal to come out of Vancouver. But when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks winning the Stanley Cup, no, sir, they are not rooting for all of Canada. I mean, all of Canada is not rooting for Vancouver.
So who's rooting against them?
The people of Calgary, the people of Edmonton. There are pockets of fans all over the place because there is this notion of, yes, the Stanley Cup belongs here. It's our award. Stop making it go to Carolina. It doesn't. No one should put barbecue in it.
Yep.
There's that sense. But then there's also the sense of, but I want my team to be the one to do it. I don't want these guys to do it. And just like every Devils fan liked to goof on the Rangers for the 1940 thing, and everybody likes to goof on the Flyers now for not having won the Cups and however long, there's a certain we can hold this over these guys' head thing going on with Vancouver having never won the Cup, and you're going to lose that this year, and I think that there's sort of a mournful thing. I remember when I lost the 1940 jokes when the Rangers won in '94. I was mournful. I nearly held a eulogy for those jokes. They were great, and I think there's also a sense that the minute that this Vancouver team wins the Stanley Cup and has that banner in the arena, their fans can be kind of insufferable sometimes.
Right.
Mainly on the world's against us kind of tract, as far as like what the referees' calls are, how the NHL rules on video reviews. They've got a columnist named Tony Gallagher out there who is king. I mean, he wears a tinfoil crown, not a tinfoil hat, when it comes to the conspiracy theories. So there is that sense from other fans about Vancouver, and I think that there's a fear that maybe things will simply become insufferable if they win a Stanley Cup.
You know, there hasn't been a Canadian team that won a cup since 1993. I'm sure you know this. But that's a long time. That's
a very long time. And you know, they've had a few make the finals. I mean, obviously Calgary had their shot, Edmonton had their shot, Ottawa had their shot, but no such luck. And I think this is probably, in my opinion, their best shot to win since they won. And it'll be a hell of a moment. I mean, there's no question that there's something special about this happening. And by that I mean it'll be a moment in which perhaps, given the Winnipeg news, given the fact Vancouver wins the Stanley Cup, Gary Bettman gets an iota of a break from the people in Canada. Like maybe I hate Bettman becomes I am extraordinarily perturbed by Bettman for like a minute.
I'm very excited that hockey's gone back to Winnipeg. I thought that was great. I think that's a good story, not a bad one. I would love to see Quebec get a team. I would love to see a second Toronto team.
See, that's where I am. I'm you know, people ask me what I think about the Winnipeg thing, and my answer is I feel terrible for the fans in Atlanta because clearly it was massive misownership and mismanagement rather, and bad ownership that torpedoed that franchise. I mean, they had one playoff appearance and no playoff wins in 11 years. That's just terrible. I feel good for Winnipeg. You got to feel good anytime you see a bunch of 12-year-olds drinking Bud Lights on the street at 11 a.m. That's always a good time, as they were when the announcement came down.
Right.
But I think overall, though, I would much prefer to see a second team in Toronto and much prefer to see a team back in Quebec City than see a team in Winnipeg. I think there could always be some problems down the road for this team, even though the situation is much different than it was the first time. I still kind of feel like those two markets might have been better for the NHL than Winnipeg.
Well, why can't we have all three?
Well, I guess we can have all three, but you know, what are we going to expand, or are we just going to start moving the Sun Belt teams up there?
No, I think there's a couple teams, and you know who they are, that could easily move to Quebec and become the second Toronto team. And then I think I count Buffalo as a Canadian team, even though they're in America. I feel like they. So
I hesitate about the massive relocation thing because economics are cyclical, and I went back and researched when the Jets left the kind of language and the kind of doom and gloom that was being thrown around back then. And you know, the strength of the Canadian dollar has really propped up a lot of these franchises in a significant way. If conditions change, you know, are we going to be back in a place where we have to start talking about helping out these teams versus helping out the southern markets in the NHL? I don't know. I mean, it's something that none of us can really predict. My concern about Winnipeg is this. I think you can always find people that want to play in Quebec City outside of Eric Lindros. I think that you can obviously find people who would not mind playing on the Toronto LA Clippers to the Maple Leafs Lakers.
Yep.
I do wonder whether or not Winnipeg is going to have to pay above and beyond market value for every free agent simply because they don't want to play in Manitoba.
Well, you got the hard cap, though.
You do have the hard cap, but I mean, you know, insofar as are you saying as far as them, you know, like getting in financial trouble because they're overspending?
Well, I just
mean that this could easily be a team that finds their roster to be top heavy financially because they're overpaying for premium players to either keep them in Winnipeg or to have them come to Winnipeg. It could easily be that kind of situation.
I just want to clarify one thing you said. You said Toronto, the other Toronto team would be the Clippers to the Maple Leafs Lakers. I think you owe it to the Maple Leafs fans to say that they're the Clippers and that the new team would be the Lakers.
From a successful level, yes. From a prestige level,
yeah.
You know, it's always going to be like that. It's you know, much respect to my Brooklyn Nets, but when that thing happens, same kind of scenario. No matter how bad the Knicks are, right?
Greg Wyshynski, we will read you on Yahoo Sports during the finals. Try not to work too hard. I get worried about you. You're putting up a lot of words every day. I don't want you to get burned out, develop a cocaine problem or something.
I'll be all right. So the prediction, by the way, sir, is Vancouver in 6.
Well, I didn't want to hear that prediction because I knew that's where you were going. I'm going Bruins in 6. Just because it's a total homer pick and I'm biased.
If you win, I get a 6-pack of Sam Adams, and if I win... Oh, wait, no, if I win, I get Sam Adams. If you win, I'll send you sushi. Delicious Vancouver sushi.
I want whatever the local Vancouver beer is. I want a 6-pack.
Oh, the Granville Island, sir.
That's what I'll take. All right.
Vancouver, again, the best thing that could happen to Vancouver is a Cup victory because that town can throw a party. That's a party town, sir.
That is true. I like Vancouver. I wish the Bruins were playing a city that I did not like, but we'll make do. I'm sure I'll work up some good hate by game 2.
There you go.
Greg, talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks, man.
All right, bringing in my wife's nemesis. He is directing, or he did direct, a movie that's coming out. You directed a movie that comes out in... let me do my intro, please. July 8th. Beats, Rhymes, and Life, The Travels of a Tribe Called Quest, which there should be a documentary about the making of this documentary. Michael Rapaport, what's happening?
What's going on, Bill?
Tell me about the struggles to get this documentary finished and on a movie screen.
Well, making a movie is hard. Making a documentary is hard. Making an independent film is really, really hard these days. And, a documentary about a hip-hop group that, no longer, it's sort of they're an iconic group. Yeah. But they're it's like an out-of-business because they're very sought after. So to try to get, all parts in place, moving, and then get all samples cleared and, raise money. It was a challenge. It was a good challenge, and I couldn't be happier with the opportunity and the end result. The movie was, is going to be distributed by Sony Pictures Classics July 8th in Los Angeles and New York. And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. It took 3 years to get it done, but it was worth it. Well worth it.
This is the first thing you directed?
First thing I directed. First film I directed. I directed an episode of a television show I was on, Boston Public, which I know you were a big fan of because it had the name Boston in it.
Right.
But other than that, I've just been an actor. But I've been wanting to direct for, a few years, and really it just came down to, something, that I was passionate about, and then just doing it. And I started the project by putting up my own money, which is really the way, that's an independent filmmaking way. You gotta, sort of put your money where your mouth is. Especially if you're an actor and you're known as an actor, nothing's going to get handed to you.
Right.
So we just did it. It was really just, really a passion project, and it kind of grew from there.
All right. Well, good luck with it. Let's talk about basketball because you have a lot of opinions.
I have a lot of opinions, and then I reached out to you last night after the game. Here's some of my initial thoughts. I haven't heard any of your thoughts and opinions about the game last night. I'm always impressed with your analysis.
Thank you.
And I've been rereading your book because I was always taken by the 2006 views you had on the Dallas Miami series that year, because I think that something was fishy going on in that series. And I know you talked about the fishiness in your book. I was referring to the book last night. But, last night I thought that, what it reminded me of? The last few Manny Pacquiao fights. The last few Manny Pacquiao fights, he has just overwhelmed all his opponents with speed, strength, and endurance. And that's what it felt like last night. I felt like the Heat just ran through them. I felt like Dirk Nowitzki passed up a few key shots in the fourth quarter. I'd rather him just throw the ball near the rim. Than pass it off to in the fourth quarter. A couple of times, I'm not sure the details of who he passed it to, but I was like, shoot the damn ball. And I feel like unless the Dallas Mavericks clothesline and or bridge somebody early on in game 2, they need to get physical. There's too many easy baskets. That dunk that LeBron had in the fourth quarter, that should never happen.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy. I want the Dallas Mavericks to win. I'm rooting for the Dallas Mavericks. I rooted for the Boston Celtics and I rooted for the Chicago Bulls. And no one's been able to stop the Heat last night.
My fear is that Dallas missed their chance because Miami for about 2.5 quarters didn't feel like Miami, and it felt like that game was sitting there waiting to get stolen. And Dallas was getting all good shots. And that was, I think I even tweeted during the game, like they were missing open shots, but all of the shots were good shots, and it made me feel like, all right, this is good. They've kind of figured out how to play this team. And then all of a sudden they started missing, and Miami went to that second gear, and that was it. And
that's the Manny Pacquiao gear.
Yeah, that was it. And, I think that was the game they could have stolen. I don't think Miami's going to play worse at home than that. They shot 38%. And really only LeBron played pretty well. Wade played pretty well. Bosh played well for about a quarter and a half and then was terrible. Chalmers made 3 threes. Other than that, Miami didn't really play well. And they still won by 8. So I don't know if they're getting a better chance than that in Miami. I'm worried that it's going to be a short series, to be honest.
I'm concerned about that too. Did you notice Nowinski? Now I don't think Nowinski was scared or overwhelmed by the moment, like some people might say. But did you notice him passing up a few shots, with 4 or 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think that this season he's been trying to, if the defense is overcommitting to him, he's been really good about finding open shooters. But I agree with you. In that game, when nobody's making a shot, that's when he's just got to shoot. And I think he kind of eventually did realize that. But by the time he realized that, they were down 8 and they weren't going to come back at that point. I'm with you on I mentioned this during the Bulls series. You don't want this Miami team to get comfortable and start dunking and smiling at each other and posing. Like, we grew up on 80s basketball where if you did that, you got knocked down.
Where's Jerry Feasting? Get him out of retirement.
Yeah, we did. Like, Chicago really didn't even bang anybody until Game 5. And by then it was too late. And it seemed like all it did was kind of wake LeBron up. Dallas has a couple guys that will, Haywood and Chandler, I think will actually, knock somebody. But even then, I don't know.
Sociopath Deshaun Stevenson with the tattoos on his face. I mean, what's the sense of having tattoos on your face if you're not going to clothesline somebody at some point?
Well, that's like you in the celebrity game.
Right.
In February, you targeted Bieber pretty early and just went after him and tried to knock him out of his game. I thought you did it.
Thank you. And that's a celebrity game.
Yeah.
And you know what pisses me off even more? And if I was the Dallas Mavericks and I watched the post-game press conference, I mean, listen, Dwayne Wade, I was watching the game last night and I was able to perspective, just as a basketball fan, and I was looking at Dwayne Wade, I was looking at LeBron, and I was just like, these guys are so effing good.
Yeah.
They're so good. They're so composed. They're playing together. Like, look at how good they are. Like, that's three-pointer LeBron made in the first half, at the end of the quarter, and then or maybe it was the end of the third quarter.
End of the third.
And then that three-pointer Dwayne Wade made in Jason Kidd's face. I mean, these are such hard shots, and I was looking at them and just so impressed with them. And then after, in the post-game press conference, I'm looking at Dwayne Wade in his lavender sweater, and LeBron in his salmon-colored suit, and Dwayne Wade has a corsage on his lavender-colored sweater, and I'm saying to myself, there's no actor, there's no rock star, there's no 2 people in the world that could sit there and pull off those outfits. Let's just talk about the outfits. I'd be pissed off if I lost to a guy in a lavender sweater with a corsage on. That's got to motivate the Dallas Mavericks. Do you know what I'm saying, Simmons?
Well, I think...
What's the corsage Dwayne Wade had? It's not the prom. It's game 1. What's with the corsage?
I think Nowitzki's German, so he probably he liked those outfits. They were very European for him.
Oh my goodness, man! They look good. They dress good. They're making 3-pointers. They're dunking.
Yeah.
It's too frat boy. It's too much down there. They're in Miami. God only knows the kind of tail they're running across down there. Do you know what I'm saying, Simmons? Like, that's enough for me to send somebody. Like, somebody's got to change the tone of that series. And listen, you know, one of those guys could come off the bench and you take the suspension. You got to do it. Like, I'm not saying hurt anybody. I'm saying just let them know, like, this is going to be a war. Like, the Chicago series, they eventually pulled away and dominated it. But those are tough games. Last night was not a very tough game. Would you say so?
It wasn't a tough game. And to me, Dallas, I put it this way. If their bench had played that way against the Lakers, not only did they not sweep the Lakers, they lose to the Lakers. So I don't know where the confidence was from the first 3 rounds in yesterday's game. I think Barea and Peja were 1 for 11 combined. Terry was 3 for 10. He was awful for him. You know, and that's been their second best scorer. It just didn't seem like I don't know. Maybe it was too long of a layoff, or I don't know what's going on. But I blame the Knicks fans. I don't think you guys have taken enough blame for this, because if the Knicks had handled their business and had even like a decent nucleus and were run even like as a mediocre front office and an ownership, then LeBron would have signed there and we never would have had to watch 2 of the best 3 players in the league playing with each other. So I blame you. Well, it's true.
They blew it.
Blood's on your hand.
That's a fact.
Blood's on your hands. Instead, you got the Carmelo, Amari, you'll never get a defensive stop ever nucleus for the next 4 years, which you've talked about.
Yeah, well, also we got your boy Dan Antonio, who's just, I mean, that was a disaster. We got swept by the Celtics.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, that was terrible. That was terrible. I don't even know what to say. I don't even have any analysis on the Knicks at this point. I don't know where to go, like how it's going to be fixed.
You don't like the
I know
Carmelo?
Better next year, just on the talent factor, but we're getting swept to the Boston Celtics, the Ben Gay crew, 4 games. Well, not a good look. After all the hoopla this year.
Carmelo and Amari, you're semi-excited, a little excited, not excited, unexcited. What are your feelings?
No, I think they're excited. I mean, I think that the injuries, I think Chauncey's injury and I think Amari's injury, definitely, you know, we could have won that game 2, and then I think game 3 and 4 they were just beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're excited. How could you not be excited? They're you know, I don't know. Donnie Walsh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they still reference Isaiah. I love Isaiah. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. Dolan.
Wait a second. Why do you love Isaiah? Isaiah destroyed your team for like 5 years.
No. I didn't say I love Isaiah as a player.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, like, I love Isaiah. Listen, the Knicks they're in shambles. They're in shambles, and I don't even know who's to blame. Is it Dolan? Is it Donnie Walsh? Is it Isaiah? It's just like it's a mess. It's a mess, and we sneak into the playoffs, and then we get swept in 4 games. Here's
who you blame, and this is the mistake fans make all the time. The franchise is a reflection of the owner. It's like anything else. If you own a restaurant and I go there and I have a terrible meal and the waiter's rude to me and my food's undercooked and there's a cockroach that runs under my foot, it's not the manager's fault. It's the owner's fault. He hired the wrong people to run the restaurant. So
I understand.
So Dolan is, to me, 100% to blame for everything that's happened to this team since they made the 99 finals. He was the guy. He's the only common thread from 1999 to 2011. So that's who you have to blame.
I agree. I agree.
I don't understand why Knicks fans don't. You'd think they would like have like a Facebook group, like all these social media ways to try to get rid of him and make his life miserable and all this stuff. Like, why? I don't understand why the Knicks fans tacitly accept this ownership. They feel like powerless by it. Why would you feel powerless?
Yeah, but the thing that explain this to me though. But doesn't the basketball operations go through Donnie Walsh?
It does, but I mean, you saw with the Carmelo trade, Dolan was the guy wheeling and dealing with that trade. That's why Denver knew they could get everything they could get, because once Dolan got involved and decided he wanted Carmelo, he didn't care who he was giving away. It was funny that they made Landry Fields the one untouchable. I think that was a mistake. You know,
it was a what?
Well, making Landry Fields your untouchable, I would have made Gallinari the untouchable if you're going to have an untouchable.
I agree.
What did Landry Fields? Is that guy ever going to make an all-star team?
It's like being in an abusive relationship, being a Knicks fan for the past 10 years. It's like being abused.
It's a good way to put it. Tell me about the celebrity game. It was kind of, you're on your last legs, coming off the bench, banging bodies. Not really, kind of.
I didn't really see myself as on my last legs. Why do you say that, Bill?
I'm saying maybe at the tail end of your celebrity career. You're in your 40s now. Body's starting to ache. Your big ice packs after. This might be it for you.
No. My plan is, I don't really appreciate you announcing my retirement. My plan is to go down to Orlando next year.
Yeah.
Get back my MVP crown.
Uh-huh.
And then announce my retirement. I will not be announcing my retirement until I will leave on top with that MVP trophy, whether Bieber comes back or anything. I feel like I am a team player out there. I feel like I do what's best for the team. If I need to take a guy down, I take him down. I pass the ball when I need to pass the ball. And, I feel like other people, I'm not pointing any fingers or saying any names. Other people were a little bit more selfish this year. So next year I'm going to be a little bit more selfish. I'm going to get my MVP crown, and I'm going to announce my retirement after the game.
I like your philosophy that the more rappers and hip hop artists on a celebrity team, the worse the game is going to go for you. The more you have for teammates. Who's the best celebrity you ever played with?
Good question.
Because you've got 20.
I ever played with. The singer Brian McKnight is a good shooter. I don't know. Who's the best celebrity I ever played with? I haven't really been that impressed with any celebrities.
Really?
And they probably would say, yeah, they wouldn't mention me either, but I haven't been that impressed with any celebrities.
There's not like the one who was just like had the total package, do it all, everything?
Definitely not. Definitely not. So who's the most impressive celebrity you've ever coached and or played with?
Well, it'd obviously be you.
Me.
No, it would be you because you knew you were the only one who understood what the goal was, and that was for Bieber not to have a good game. Nothing else mattered. Winning and losing didn't matter in that game. It was just Bieber.
But he did have a good game.
He really didn't, though. He had about 40 turnovers.
It doesn't matter. The celebrity game is not about turnover. You could have turnovers and still have a good game. The celebrity game is about two things. How many baskets can you make, number one, and how foolish can you not look? If you keep looking bad down to a minimum and score about 10, 12, 14 points, you're going to be a candidate for the MVP. This year was a sham, though, with the Bieber thing.
Well, it was a fan vote.
They would have voted him MVP.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a fan vote, so it wasn't really.
But how awesome was Bill Walton?
Bill Walton benched Common at one point. He didn't like the way Common was running the offense. He benched him. He was mad.
Common was having a tough time guarding Bieber.
He was. He got crossed over by him.
He got crossed over by him, and he was pounding the rock a lot. So, I understood that. But I didn't appreciate Bill Walton benched me. I hard fouled Little Romeo.
Yeah.
Remember when I hard fouled Little Romeo, and then he sat me down, like, why are you fouling him so hard? I'm like, you were a psychopath when you played for the Celtics. Well, what are you breaking my balls for, Bill?
Tell me about that weird secret NBA celebrity league that's been going on for 10 years that they don't allow cameras at. Nobody writes about it. It's like Fight Club.
Yeah. It's private. It's for celebrities only. There's no journalists. That's why you can't be a part of it. It's heyday is past. But there was a time when it was like Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire.
Leo was in it?
Ice Cube. All these guys were in there playing.
Wait, Leo was in the celebrity league?
Yep. He played in there.
How is he?
He could play.
Yeah?
I mean, he's no Justin Bieber, but he could play.
What about, who was the other one you said? You just mentioned another big star.
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. How about him?
I mean, a lot of people were in there. Jamie Foxx.
Oh, how's he?
People.
Jamie Foxx thinks he's a good athlete.
He likes to shoot the ball.
Yeah, of course he does.
He has an allergy to passing. Like his skin gets, if he doesn't shoot it, like one out of every 2 times he touches it, I think it's like a skin thing. He like breaks out in hives, so he keeps shooting so he doesn't get any rashes.
How did you not end up in a basketball movie at any point in your life?
Well, I did. I had like one scene in Basketball Diary. I don't know. I really would love to be in a basketball movie. I would love to. I don't know what the. I don't think there's been a great one recently, has there? What was the last really? There hasn't been. I think that's the Will Ferrell movie was good. Did you ever see this movie Fast Break with Gabe Kaplan? You did, right?
Are you kidding? That's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, with Bernard King.
Oh, of course.
That was
classic.
Good.
I have the poster in my office.
Do you
I love
really?
Fast Break. Oh yeah, I actually have 2 posters. I have the Japanese poster and I have the real poster. I love Fast Break.
Are you serious?
Fast Break is one of my favorite movies ever. It's also the most politically.
Remaking that. I want to remake that.
Well, the problem is, I don't know if you could capture the political incorrectness that made the movie what it was. It was so inappropriate.
Right, I know, with the transgender, with the chick wrapping her breasts up with the bandage and the coke and everything.
And eating the marijuana in the car. Like, I don't know how that gets remade successfully. But, you know, when you're talking about, like, here's a movie that I thought was pretty good that you could have snuck into somehow. Above the Rim. 1994. You could have been. I don't think there was a white guy in the movie except for the coach, but you could have snuck in there as like some sort of renegade white guy.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do renegade white guy. I want to do some kind of. I don't know. There should be like something, a Bad News Bears of basketball. And we haven't been done right. The Fish That Saves Pittsburgh. I'll redo that. Me and LeBron. I don't know, something. I'm a Pisces. The Fish That Saves Pittsburgh. That was one of the worst movies ever. But
yeah.
The slow motion Dr. J dunk sequence. I would go to the theater on 86th Street and 3rd Avenue in New York City just to watch that. I would go, pay my $5, and then leave after the slow motion Dr. J dunk sequence.
What about that? He took her on a date. That's how he finished the date. He took her to a playground and dunked for her in slow motion.
That's right. Yeah. That's a good night.
What about maybe like you could do like a bench warmer story, like Scalabrini?
I would love it.
Something like
Brian
that.
Scalabrine. We do Brian's song, the remix about Brian Scalabrini.
That's a good one. Have him dying of cancer, but somehow plays in the finals.
Bernard Hopkins. Let's talk about boxing. Let's shift about Bernard Hopkins, 46 years old.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I emailed you when that fight happened.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great fight. It was a tough fight. It was a 46-year-old in the toughest fight of his whole career, one of the best middleweights in history. And boxing is at the point where it's just it's not even, there's no highlights, there's no anything brought up about that. And I think that, somebody should have shedded more light on that fight. That was a great night for boxing and a great night for 40-plus men like you and me, my friend.
It's true. He's 46, but he's a young 46, because wasn't he in jail at some point?
Yeah, you think that makes you young, or I think that takes years off your life?
Well, that's when they say in boxing, when they say he's like a young 34, that usually is code for that he spent some time in jail and didn't get hit in the head for those 3 years. I think it's good for boxing. I don't think it's good for any other sport. Any amount of time that you're not getting punched in the head is probably good for you long term.
Yeah, that's true. But, in jail, who's to say you're not getting punched in the head?
That's a good point. The thing with the Hopkins, though, is that he's had so many fights that just weren't that fun to watch that I just think people tune him out now.
I understand that, but the aftermath of it was a good fight. I just felt like HBO, they should have replayed it, and I don't know. I guess it really upsets me that boxing is at the point where, for me, it's like you could say, you can name Bernard Hopkins, you can name Manny Pacquiao, you can name, obviously, Floyd, you can name, Shane Mosley, and it's like, can you name 10 professional boxers? You're a sports writer. Can you name 10 professional boxers right now?
Well, I could, but I think it's just our generation that cares. I don't think like a 25-year-old could name 10. I think they'd have a much better chance of naming 10 UFC fighters.
And that really breaks my heart because when we, boxing used to be, it's frightening to me. Like, is that sport going to become like this? Is it going to be like lacrosse? I don't even, it's like crazy.
Lacrosse, that's a little, that's not going to happen. Although lacrosse is coming on. Maybe lacrosse will pass boxing.
I just think, is it going to, it's like they don't even put the highlights of a Bernard Hopkins best fight. That was a tough fight.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I think De La Hoya retiring probably hurt. Pacquiao is really the only guy that no matter who he's fighting, people get the pay-per-view. There's not one other boxer who could say that.
It bothers me for the sport of boxing.
Well, the heavyweight division has been the real loss because, it just got taken over by these big Russian dudes. And
those 300-pound gorillas.
Yeah, and
Russians,
it's like...
And then they're like animals, like 6'9", 317 pounds, fighting another guy, 6'11", 293 pounds. It's like, it's like robots. It's like Robotron out there.
Yeah, and I think probably the biggest mistake they made was not creating a super heavyweight division because they're using the same
division.
Well, they're using the same weight classes that we used in like the 1900s, and it's like people are bigger now. People are bigger and they're stronger and they weigh more. And I would have a heavyweight division, then I would have like anybody over 245 is a super heavyweight, and then maybe
they should do something like that.
Yeah, you got to do it because Lennox Lewis was the guy that. He was just so big. Like I know Tyson was washed up when he fought him, but I don't even think Tyson in his prime could have handled Lennox Lewis. Like 100 pounds on him.
I hear you.
So ridiculous. Not 100, but anyway. All right, Michael Rapaport, your movie July 8th, Tribe Called Quest. I'm very excited for this. Thank you for not sending me an advance copy. I appreciate it. And,
there's no DVDs anymore. The LA Film Festival, June 24th. You come.
Oh, beautiful.
Screening at the Ford Amphitheater.
That's right next to my office. I will come.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll send that to you.
All right. And good luck with your comeback. I like your plan of one last great year, celebrity MVP, then you retire on top. I think that's the way to do it.
Thank you. And hopefully next year I'll get the minutes to put up the numbers that I need to get the MVP trophy.
We'll try not to put you on a team with a lot of rappers on it.
All right, cool, man.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Bill.
Target % off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.